Welcome back, everybody, to another Drak Reviews, and this one has been a little bit of a hot-button topic because, well, it's been the subject of aggravation, and in some cases frustration and impatience for the last couple of years. But we are now going to finally tackle it, and that is Keiji Inafune and Comcept's Mighty Number 9. So before we get started, I'm going to set a unique rule, and I think I've said it in a couple of videos, but for those who have not seen it, here's how this is going to work. This review is going to be broken down into two separate reviews, or two separate segments. The reason I'm going to do that is because, look, I get all the controversy that's behind Mighty Number 9 and its release and getting it into our hands. But is it fair to judge a game based solely off of that compromise? And I would off of that controversy. And I would actually say no. We still need to be able to judge a game by its own merits and how it was made. So at that point, I'm going to split this into two parts. One is going to be this one, which is going to evaluate Mighty Number 9 as a game. All controversy aside, as a game, whether or not it measures up, whether or not it's a good indie project, things like that. And then the next part, which is going to air tomorrow afternoon, is going to be with all of that kept in. And it's just going to be more along the lines of a vlog format to be able to give my opinions on Comcept, as well as Keiji Inafune, and all of the problems that came about from getting Mighty Number 9 into our hands. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the review. Starting with the story is actually fairly basic. If you've seen a Mega Man game before, that's what this is. This is a reimagining of Mega Man, and therefore we have kind of a similar plot. We have a bunch of robots that let's start with the society. The society is based strongly on humans and robots working together. And in between that, we also have Cherry Dynamics creating all these mainstream robots that are helping out. And we also have Dr. Sonda and Dr. William White, who are creating what are called the Mighty Numbers. And at least I believe that's how they work. The Sonda and William White created the Mighty Numbers to be able to better help out mankind. However, when we come into the story, a virus has plagued the city, a computer virus that is corrupting all of the robots in the city and making them go haywire, except for the ones that were deactivated during the last upload, which had the virus, and also our main character, Beck, otherwise known as Mighty Number 9. And it's up to Beck to go out and clean up the city and take care of the haywire robots due to his unique powers of being able to cleanse the corruption from the robots in the area. So at that point, you actually do need to go to the previous Mighty Numbers 1 through 8 to be able to free them of their corruption, because they're your friends. And then eventually you go on to face the ultimate villain of this particular game, which is a being called Trinity. So overall, I don't... when it comes to the score, I didn't fault the story. I actually thought that the story was pretty much the same as a Mega Man game, but at the same time, it took enough left turns and curveballs to be able to be a unique concept, to be able to provide something new to a Mega Man fan and Mega Man players. So at that point, I actually did like a lot of what they were trying to do, especially in the fact that these just weren't mainstream robots like the original Mega Man robots were, where Electman was supposed to help out with the power plant, where Iceman was supposed to be able to help out in Arctic weather kind of thing. These were all built with a purpose, but at the same time, they were built like a family and treated each other like a family. And so that adds a bit more gravity to I almost said Glenn there. What Beck is trying to do, which is he's trying to bring his family back. All of them have gone haywire, and all he wants to do is bring them back so that he can have his family again. And so it's more of a noble concept than Mega Man was, which was take out Dr. Wily's robot masters and go take out Dr. Wily and bring him to justice. There's a lot more endearing concepts to it. I will admit, though, that a villain for the series is not, or I want to say series, but this is just one game. The villain is not quite clear. I mean, obviously, Trinity is the one that's causing the problem, but even then, when you get... I'm going to go into the spoilers, because it's been a couple of months, people. But even then, when you go into kind of her origins and everything like that, it's not necessarily accurate to say that she's a legit bad guy. She's just a misunderstood one. And I know a lot of people kind of took the villain role to either Dr. Blackwell or to Mr. Graham of Cherry Dynamics. And yeah, while Graham is evil in nature. You know, he's a businessman. I don't actually think I got that vibe from Dr. Blackwell. Dr. Blackwell, the reason he's imprisoned in the game is because he tried to do a noble thing. He actually tried to stop the activation of Trinity the first time. This is the second time she's activated. So at that point, a villain is unclear, but they actually do have kind of a strong hinting of William White becoming the villain, because we find out that he is actually the son of Dr. Blackwell. His name is Bill Blackwell. And it actually, near the end of the game, we start getting little hints here and there that maybe he is more of a Dr. Wily than a Dr. Light than we think. So that's the interesting part here, is that we're technically walking into a Mega Man world without a Dr. Light. Or in this case, the Dr. Light eventually becomes evil. So again, this story actually does provide a lot of cool left turns and uniqueness to the Mega Man formula that makes it worthwhile and playable and interesting to go through. Going into the visuals, here's where I actually docked a little bit of points, because yes, it's a 2.5D shooter. Most of the time it looks really, really good. I did like the designs of the Mighty Numbers, minus Beck. I don't know, I can't get behind Beck's design, because they made some minor changes here and there to make him look more like an anime character. At least that's kind of what I'm getting out of it. And I actually like the original concept art better than I do this. And I know that there was a model in that original concept art. So I've seen interviews where Comcept said, no, this is the original concept art. No, I've seen the version that Keiji Inafune played, and that was a different kind of model, at least a little bit. So at that point, I'm not entirely fond of Beck's design. I'm also not really fond of Call's design. Yeah, in case you didn't get the joke, people, this is, the original game was based around rock and roll. This is Beck and Call. So, Call, I didn't really like the design for her. And I also didn't like the fact that where all of these other Mighty Numbers have emotions and care about each other, Call is a blank robot. So that was another beef that I had with the game. I will also admit a lot of the other bosses aren't entirely all that original visually. So I did take a little bit of points off of the visuals. There could have been more interesting enemy designs, but that's a minor thing to take on. Moving on to the gameplay, this is where I have a big beef with this game. Now, I actually think it plays very, very well. It doesn't feel glitchy or anything like that. However, its difficulty, I think, needed some serious retuning. And the reason I think it needed that was because, yes, this was supposed to be filling more of the Mega Man formula, but making it more hardcore. And I actually think they made it hardcore in all the wrong ways. The best example that I can give you is, like, some of the boss fights are harder than others, which is going to happen in a Mega Man game, but punishingly difficult as far as I'm concerned. Like, it's going from easy mode to hard mode, like, right off the bat, including the final boss. The final boss actually had some mechanics that I never was able to completely figure out. And that was actually frustrating to me. But the biggest culprit, as far as I'm concerned, in difficulty is the way that lives and energy tanks work in this game. So the way that it works is that you start out a level and you have 2 lives, or not 2, but technically 3, because 0 counts as a life. Which is like in any other Mega Man game. And that's fine. My only problem is that, like, let's just say you walk out of the level with an extra 3 lives, because you've been working your butt off. Do you get to keep those 3 lives? No. You were immediately reset back to 3 lives. Why? I do not get why you did that. You basically took all of my accomplishment and said, screw you, threw it to the floor, stamped on it, maybe even took a crap on it, and then sent me into the other level and said, hey, good luck with that. And that just doesn't feel fair. That doesn't feel like a reward. I don't feel like I'm accomplishing anything. It's just like the game is saying, oh, you thought you were going to have things easier? No. And the same thing applies to energy tanks. So you can only have 2 energy tanks at a given moment, and you actually do build them up over time, which I do like. That's a mechanic borrowed over from the Mega Man X games. However, again, when you go to a brand new level, if you have both energy tanks, you lose them. Why? I get why they were trying to do that, because a lot of people, when they play Mega Man games, were only using them in boss fights, and they said, well, you want to be able to keep going in this level, right? So we'll make it so that you have to use them in the level. I'm still not going to use them in the level, dude. I mean, like in the last level I did, but most of the time I just lost them. And that, again, is the same concept here. You're taking away my reward for my hard work simply because you're trying to make the game harder. And I don't agree with that at all. You don't ever do something like that, especially to a gamer who is playing these specifically to say, you know, I beat this, or I was able to get this much out of it. You're taking that away, and that sucks. Absolutely. So I did dock some points off with gameplay. Moving on to the audio, I also dock points here. And here's the thing. The voice acting, I didn't necessarily have a problem with. A lot of the voices I actually really appreciated. I especially love Stephen Bloom playing a sniper. I love the voice of William White, aka Bill Blackwell. Beck's voice, it got a little annoying after a while, but I was okay with it. Call, again, was very monotone, so I can't really say anything bad about it. Sonda got annoying, but I think that's just because his character is supposed to be kind of annoying. My only problem was the music, and the music, in some cases, it felt original, it felt cool, and in other cases, I didn't notice the music at all. And sometimes it just felt very generic. It felt very recycled from level to level. And that's never what I want to hear in a Mega Man game. I always love going to unique stages in Mega Man because of their stage music. I'll admit, like, some of my video game music soundtracks on here are Mega Man. So at that point, the fact that these were very generic, very normalized, actually kind of bugged me. So I did dock off a little points in that regard. But the voice work made up for it a little bit. The other thing I also need to talk about in the gameplay that does play into the story a little bit is the fact that instead of just getting the Mighty Numbers powers, you actually do get to see them fight in the stage. That was also a really cool element, and I wished we could have gotten a couple of other more helpful ideas in that regard. But yeah, back into the audio. I thought the voiceover work was good, but the music was underwhelming. And then finally moving on to our replay value and presentation. Does this game have replay value? I would actually dare say it does, but it's half-hearted. In the fact that a lot of people are just going to play this to beat it. I know that they have achievements and trophies and whatnot to be able to say, well, I've done this and that and the other. But basically what you're saying is you want to play this game and it's EX modes and things, and it's boss rushes on harder difficulty. And that just doesn't seem like fun replay value to me. A completionist would probably disagree with me on that, but to me, it's not entirely worth that journey. I would just say I would beat it, and then I'd be okay with it. The overall presentation, does it all come together to be able to form a good to be able to form the product that it needs to be? I would say in the long run, yes, it does. Because even though the music can at some points be very forgettable, even though at some points the gameplay can be very punishing, it does still come together to give us a good and unique experience. So at that point, I can completely and wholeheartedly say, yes, it was worth the effort to be able to go through it. Am I going to go through it again? Maybe after I've cooled off a little bit, because that last level, oh boy, I was really mad at it for a while there. And so I'm going to go ahead and give Mighty Number 9 my final score of 8 out of 10. I think it's a good bordering on great game. And which is really sad to me because we're going to get into the controversy next time, but this actually has a lot of potential in it, just like the original Mega Man did. And for as much as I can complain about the difficulty in Mighty Number 9, the original Mega Man had it too. And so at that point, it's really disappointing to me that all the controversy surrounds it, because this was a game with a tremendous amount of potential that we probably won't see another game out of this series. And that's really sad to me. But that's going to go ahead and do it for my review of Mighty Number 9. I hope you guys have enjoyed. I hope I've made my opinions very clear. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with this, but it is my opinion nonetheless. Thank you guys so much for continuing to subscribe to my content and being able to check it all out, whether you're a fan of it or not. And of course, I will see you guys next time for the next review.